Jennifer Ramsay, thank you so much for coming to visit us here at the Chennai Storytelling Festival 2022. It's a great honor that you're with us. Please introduce yourself fully, tell us about your work, and please lead us through this very interesting and important workshop.
Thank you, Eric. Well, my name is Jennifer Ramsay. I'm a Scottish storyteller living in Spain. I've been working as a professional storyteller for around 18 years here. And I should say I'm also an art therapist and I'm trained in psychodrama. And I love mixing everything into a kind of story medicine. So hopefully today this story will say something to you, resonate with you somehow. I really hope so. Actually, if I had known that just before we were going to do the workshop on the goddess, it would have been Godmother Death, because I never quite know whether to do Godfather Death, like the Grimm's brothers, or Godmother Death, like they do in some other cultures. So what I tend to do with this story is when I tell it in English, I call it Godfather Death, and then in Spanish, I go to Godmother Death. Who knows why? And so this story was published in the 1812 edition of their collection. And I always think it's interesting to think back to that time in history when the story was actually written down, because it wasn't like nowadays. I mean, there really was there still is quite a lot of poverty around, but I'm just thinking, back to those times when there was great big families, and probably then it was the man who went out to work and the woman stayed at home in those times. Okay, so I just sort of like setting the scene. And also in those times, in many stories, perhaps the woman would die in childbirth, and often the father would marry again. So you find a lot of stories with stepmothers. But anyway, that isn't the case with this story. Although it's in this collection of fairy tales, I mean, it doesn't really follow the classic pattern of a fairy tale. And I don't particularly want to get into that anyway. It's in that book, and you do find it in other cultures as well. Now, before we start, because it is always quite a delicate thing when we talk about death, like as they mentioned with the goddess, it's so nice to talk about the sort of the young maiden goddess at the moment when everything's just blooming and green, or perhaps the wise goddess, the sort of crone, and bit like to talk about the part of the goddess that's connected with death. It's more delicate, especially in Western society. I know in India it's not such a taboo, but it certainly is, from where I'm from in Scotland and where I live in Spain. And I think stories can really, really help us open up a door and just to be able to talk about death in a natural way. Now, before I actually tell the story, I just wonder, what is your image of death? Because as a storyteller, I often feel it's my responsibility to try and, I don't want to give the listener exactly how I portray death, but I need to know how death is for me in that particular story. So I would just ask you for a few seconds, if you were to tell this story, you may or may not know it, what would your image of death be? Is it like a person? Is it male or female? Is it something else? And you may wish to share that in the chat. Just if you feel like it, just Well, I brought the image of the tarot, which of death. And what we see with this image, hopefully you can see it, is, there's it's like a skeleton figure with armor on a white horse. This may or may not resonate with you. And what's interesting about this image is that there's a cardinal, and he's praying to death, saying, "Don't take me, I've been praying all the time." But we do know you can pray as much as you want, but death will take you. Under this white horse, there's a king. His crown's fallen off, he's completely dead, because money won't keep death away. There's a woman in the corner. I know it's difficult to see, and she's sort of turning away from death. She doesn't want to use this youthful beauty, but you know that will also disappear with time. And then there's a young child with sunflowers, because it says that young child is innocent and just can see death for what it is. There is no life without death. I can see now there's a lot of things in the chat. And also, is death friend or foe? So often we see death as an enemy. And perhaps death is simply a friend who's just coming to take us over to the other side when it's our time to go. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. And I'm really interested in reading everything in the chat, but I'll leave that till later. Yeah, also Bessie said, we attach death with suffering. And if it was the opposite, if death was what came to stop the suffering, sometimes we just connect death with suffering, don't we? Anyway, let's get into the story. I needed companion. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the world of stories and say goodbye to wherever you are, the problems you may have, because we're going to listen to Godmother Death. Once upon a time, there was a family, a very poor family. There was the husband, the wife, and 12 children, and another one was on the way, number 13. Now, that man worked non-stop, but it didn't matter how much he worked, there just never seemed to be enough food for that large family. And when the 13th was born, he thought, I'm going to have to find a godparent who will look after this child when he gets older. So off he went for a little walk, and just as he was walking along the road, you'll never imagine who was there. God himself. And he said, well, obviously God knew everything, and he said, I know you're looking for a godparent. And that man started to think, wow, God himself or herself, depends how you look at it. And then he started to think, he said, well, actually, I really want a just godparent for my child. And I actually don't think God's very fair. I mean, some people are rich and some people are poor, some people are healthy, some people are ill. I don't think that's a very good godparent for my child. So he said, God, I'm really grateful, but no. Thank you, but no. He continued on his way and came across a figure, a very smart, elegant figure, all dressed in red, lovely suit, sort of like a special walking stick, obviously very rich. And this person also knew. He said, I know you're looking for a godparent. What about me? I've got money. And he looked down and he realised that he had hoofs. It was the devil. He said, but the devil's not fair. Oh, no, no, no. I want a just godparent for my child. Sorry, but no. Walked on a little bit further, and there was Death. And Death also knew everything. And Death said, what about me? You know, I've never had a godchild before, and, I would really like to have one. Would you consider having me as a godparent, a godfather? And he thought, well, Death actually really is quite just and fair, because Death takes everyone. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or old or young. Yeah, actually, I think Death would be a good godparent. So Death said, okay, well, listen, I'll come along to the christening, and then when the boy comes of age, I'll be back and I will take good care of him. That was it. He came to the christening, and when that boy came of age, there he was, and he introduced himself. I'm your godfather. Oh, listen, I've been thinking, how do you feel about becoming like a physician, a doctor, but a famous physician? Well, that would be good. That brings in money, and my family need money. Okay, well, come with me into the forest. So they walked into this deep, dark, ancient forest, way into the centre, into the heart of the forest. And there he showed him some magic herbs. He said, take these herbs. Now, when you are called upon, when someone is on their deathbed, you will, if you see me at the foot of the bed, nothing can be done because this person will soon be dead. But if I am standing at the head of the bed, give them some of these herbs because soon this person will be out of bed. Well, that's exactly what happened. He became a physician. He became really famous because people knew that he had the power of knowing if someone was going to live or die. And word spread all around the kingdom. And then one day, as often happens in stories, the king was very, very ill. And that young physician was called for. And he was to receive a huge bag of gold if he could save the king's life. So off he went. He was so excited about it. He went into the king's bedroom and where was Death? Standing at the foot of the bed. He knew nothing could be done. Soon he would be dead. But without even thinking, he turned the bed around, and now Death was standing at the head of the bed. And he said, he gave him some herbs, and very soon the king was out of bed, and everyone in the kingdom was celebrating. Everyone except Godfather Death. He was glaring at him, and he pointed his bony, bony finger. Don't ever do that again. Well, he had his bag of gold. Everything was perfect. What more could you ask for? From rags to riches. Well, time went by, and then news arrived that the king's daughter was also on her deathbed, and he was called for. And if he was able to cure her, he probably would win her hand in marriage. Off he went. He had heard about how fantastic that princess was. But as he entered the palace, he could smell it. He could smell that Death was near. And as he got nearer and nearer the bedroom of the princess, he realised that Death was already waiting inside. And there he was, standing at the foot of the bed. He looked at the princess. He looked at Death. He looked again at the princess. Even though she was dying, he totally fell in love and without thinking, turned that bed around and Death was standing at the head of the bed. He gave the princess the herbs and very soon she sat up in bed. And all the kingdom were celebrating. Everyone was so happy, except Godfather Death. And when everyone was celebrating with the princess, he took his bony hand and he grabbed his godson. He opened a door and they started to walk down and down and down and down, further and further and further. At one point they passed what could have been that ancient forest, the smell of the ancient forest, but they went down and down and down and down until they got to a door. The godfather opened the door and they could see an enormous cave, like a cavern, absolutely enormous. And there were thousands and thousands of candles. Perhaps you'd like to close your eyes for a second and just imagine for you what this cave of candles looked like. There were candles everywhere, thousands and thousands, big and small, fat and thin. Some were going out. Some had a big flame. Just imagine twinkling flames everywhere. And he said, "Where are we?" "Ah, these are the life lights of humankind. Why not walk around and just have a look at all these candles?" "Yeah, but I don't understand. For every human being, there's a candle here. See that one that's just gone out? Well, they have just passed on to the other side. And that one that's just lit up, they've just been born. Oh, very interesting. Perhaps you'd like to see your candle?" All of a sudden, he felt a bit uncomfortable. He said, "Well, okay then." And he looked around and the godfather said, "It's that little tiny spluttering one." "Godfather, excuse me, Godfather, I have so many years to live. I have all this gold. I'm going to marry the princess and..." "Godfather, you're my godfather. Please do something. Can't you put a big candle on top and it'll light it?" And oh, let me see. He took a big candle that hadn't even been lit and squashed it down on top of that little spluttering candle. And the godson fell down dead. And that's the end of the story. Now, there are many things we can do with this story. But I think one of the key scenes in the story is perhaps to go to that cave. It is, well, let's see what the comments, let's see what the comments are first of all. Let's see how you feel after this story. So there's Sandra who really likes the story. I don't know if Regina does it quite a story. Well, first of all, let's look at the ending before we do an activity, okay? Because it is a strong ending, but please remember at the beginning, he was looking for a godfather who was just. So if a godfather or godparent is just, should they have favoritism? What would have been a happy ending here? Who's the baddie here? Godfather Death was just doing his job. So under trying to cheat death, I think it's one of the oldest story. It's like you find in so many stories trying to cheat death. And you can't cheat death. We can. Death was just a just godfather. But do you see how it doesn't really fit the sort of typical fairy story pattern? Anyway, I think it is interesting to look at this because I so often hear, I actually do workshops called Dancing with Death to connect with life, not just to connect with death. And we often talk about this, how we often death is connected with suffering and not being just. And perhaps it's life, it's like that. Who knows? I'm not here to say, I'm just here to let the story go. Yeah, so today I was actually thinking we could actually work a little bit with candles. And we are accustomed to having a happy ending nowadays, aren't we? Especially if you watch Walt Disney. So, truth and equalization here. Yeah. Any other things that people would write in the chat? Is anyone feeling uncomfortable, or just even one word to how you're feeling would help me just get an idea of the energy in the group. Baffled. Okay. So Evelyn said he should not have turned the bed around. Yeah, again, that goes back to the whole thing about justice. He was a doctor. And well, nowadays doctors are meant to save lives, aren't they? I don't know, I'm not here to judge that. Death came over as a bit annoyed at the end. Yeah, he did. Curious. What happens to the extinguished candles? Okay, Tom, I don't know. Well, anyway, let me see. I think, why don't we go back into the story? Just let go to death, let go of control. Let's go back into the story. And I think I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes and in your mind's eye, just sort of travel through the story. And perhaps think about like any different colours or smells or sensations or just anything that you can remember from the story, okay? Like remembering, at the very beginning, there was the poor family. The 13th child was born and they wanted a just godparent. They met God, the devil, and then death and decided that that was the godparent. He gave him these magic herbs, and so if he was at the foot of the bed, nothing could be done because soon they would be dead. If they were at the head of the bed, take the herbs and soon they would be up. Okay? Then there was the 2 times that he tricked death, changed the bed around, and death took him down to the cave, showed him the candles, and we know what happened at the end. So I'm going to ask you just to travel in your mind's eye through the story and what scene sticks out for you, okay? So just a minute or two to travel. Have your paper and a pen nearby. Just travel through the story just for like 2 minutes until you get to the last scene in the cave of candles. And when you do get to that cave of candles, perhaps you'd actually quite like to walk around that cave and just look at all the life and death that's just continually happening at this very moment, at every single moment. And it's lovely to read the comments in the chat. And I wonder, are you willing to look around and see perhaps your own candle? Is it big or small? It could be small but with a bright flame. Is it surrounded by other candles? Just if you feel like it, just have a little walk and see what your candle would be like. And as you do it, just see how you're feeling. And perhaps take a piece of paper and write, or if you want, you can draw the candle. Just whatever feels, but just take the piece of paper and write, "My candle is," and keep writing for the next 3 minutes. And as you're writing or drawing, just be in contact with how you're feeling, any sensations that may come up. And I wonder if you could actually put a title on that drawing or that piece of writing. What would the title be of your candle? Okay, another sort of half minute to finish. And again, if you've written something, then perhaps you'd like to reread it again and see how you feel as you're reading it again. Or if you've drawn something, perhaps look at it from a different perspective, like further away or closer up or up above or down below. Just sort of play around with it and see how you feel with whatever's come up after this story. Okay, now I wonder, it would be nice to know what's come up. Again, it's what we do really just depends on how the group is and how you're feeling. So far in the chat, I've seen a lot of like curiosity and sort of like interesting things coming up. At the moment, I haven't like sensed that anyone's particularly upset or anything. Okay, and then there's Regina, who was in Mary's grotto outside Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. Wow. Yeah, and they were called life lights, so thanks for pointing that out. It wasn't death lights, they are life lights. Mm. Because what would be interesting is also to take this a little step further. Let's see, in a deep, pensive place. Yeah, it's a story that, well, like many of these stories, that could be with you for several days because it does wake up a lot of things. Oh, I love what you said, Mike. My candles is now short, there's not much left, but its light is lovely. Now that is so beautiful, because what's the point in having a great big candle, with a light that doesn't really light anything up? So I really, really love what you've written. Uh, okay. Rebecca, it could be crushed at any point. Yeah, well, we don't know, do we, Rebecca? Okay, I think we'll take it one step further. Now, you were able, hopefully, most of you were able to connect with a candle in that cave full of life lights. Now, I wonder, do you actually have a candle beside you at the moment? Are they similar? Are they different? Is one bigger? Is one shorter? I've got two candles here. I've got like a big fat candle that looks as if it could burn for a long time. And I've got a little one that's in a lovely green glass container. Well, another thing you could actually do is have a little dialogue between the candle you saw and the candle that you have nearby. So what would one candle say to the other? Or it could be that, like Mike mentioned, that his candle's quite short now, but I imagine Mike's had a bigger candle. Perhaps what would Mike like to say to a candle that's just starting out in the world? Or if someone has a big candle, what would they say to a little one? I would just like you to choose two candles. It could be two that you saw in the cave, it could be one you have here, or just like what Mike mentioned before, perhaps Mike has so much. I mean, he said it's not that big anymore, but it's got such a bright light. How can the knowledge of that candle, that everything that Mike has lived, what could he say to another candle that's just starting out? So again, I'd invite you just to take a pen, a piece of paper, and have a little dialogue between two candles. Is that clear? Does anyone want me to clarify? I don't know if you ever have a dialogue before between two candles.
I
Just
just missed about the conversation between the candles. So the candle of ourselves and the candle of, which is the second.
well, it could be one could be the candle that you saw in the cave connected with you, and the other could be a candle that you have nearby at the moment.
Okay.
Or it could be, for example, your candle would like to have a conversation with another candle there. It could be a candle perhaps that's going to go out. It could be a candle that's just started. So it's just choose your candle that you saw and another candle and have a dialogue between them.
Okay. Thank
Okay. Again, I'll give you sort of 5 minutes for this, okay? No one's going to look at your grammar or anything, so just a dialogue between the two candles. And again, pay attention to how you're feeling as you write this. And perhaps let a title come to mind, a title for this dialogue. Okay, when it feels right, just start finishing off the dialogue. I think it would be a nice time to share, but I'm just wondering about breakout rooms or having a space here.
I'm ready with breakout rooms if you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, Eric, I see that there's a lot of cameras that are not on. What do you think's best? Some time in?
Well, if you'd like to go into a breakout room, if you could turn your camera on now.
Yeah. Best said here, let's share. If there's not that many people, then we can share here because it's so nice. It's nice to hear the people who are as well.
Mhm.
So, how many people are here? There seems to be quite a few people saying share here, Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, shall we? Well, let's see if there's people who want to share first, because if no one wants to share publicly, we'll go into breakout rooms. So perhaps just sort of put the hand up in the reactions or whatever if you'd like to share. Yeah, because sometimes people get into breakout rooms and you hear two other people, but you don't hear others. So we've got one person who wants to share. Anyone else? There's two. Okay. Oh, there's quite a few. So Eric, shall I open, Eric?
No, I have them just about ready.
Thank you,
Um,
perfect. No, but we don't, I think we're going to stay here, Eric.
Oh, okay, then
There
no
seems to be
need.
quite a few people quite happy to share publicly,
Okay,
so
good.
yeah. And the first one I've got is Shrivija. So I'm really sorry about the pronunciation. Wait, no.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you so much. It is a very, very insightful workshop, first of all. Okay, quickly to share about the candle. I somehow felt when I entered and I was searching for my candle, it was on the higher plane. It was on a pillar, and my candle seemed to be really fat. And flame was very big, and I was not able to reach. So that was a scenario. So now went into, do you want me to say the dialogues or what exactly, one of the crisp of it?
Well, also how you feel. I mean, how did that feel that your candle was high up there? How did that make you feel?
Unsure, kind of scary. It was as if out of control. So that was the feeling that I was having.
Okay, because up there could mean it felt protected. It could mean that it could fall. It could, it really depends how it feels for you. So,
I was not able to reach it. It was stuck. It was in a very, very solid plane, but my hands was not able to reach. So, so from my side, I felt like a scared and unsure, confused state.
mhm,
That's because
okay.
other candles were all low. They were all were very much on the same plane. Only mine was on the very, very higher plane. So that's it.
Okay. And was it a tall candle, a little candle?
It was a very, very fat, very huge candle. It was
Very
half
huge.
lit, or half done, but with a big flame. The wick was really, really fat. It was the most, it was the very heaviest flame, the entire cave. So that
Wow.
scared me. Yeah.
Okay. Again, all this gives us food for thought. I don't have the answer. And the most important thing is how it makes you feel.
Okay. So my
So thank
heading
you
was
very
why. Why for the conversations whichever I had. Why?
uh
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's hear how that resonates with other people as well, because sometimes you hear that and you think, oh, actually, my candle was also high up. So let's see how that feels. So thank you so much for sharing. And Bess, what about you?
Hi, thank you. First of all, I wanted to tell Srividya that I think that the top that you're wearing is absolutely stunning. It'd be great to see all of it, the figures that are on it. Yeah, very similar, similar but different from Srividya's story. Um, I had an interface with my mother who is sputtering. She's sputtering, but our candles are the same dimension around and very greasy, so really strong, strong light. But mine is here and hers is here. And I saw it in time lapse. So when mine was here, she was casting a shadow and making my shadow go very, very far when I was smaller, and then we were more or less equal, and now we're here. And my first instinct was to say, I'm keeping you warm, and pulling you up. You know, my warmth is going to make your flame burn brighter now that you're down here, smaller, and sputtering and a little bit weak. But I'm here and I'm next to you and I'm protecting you. And the story title was, infinite intimacy. There was some sort of exchange of, this whole time lapse during that time we had to talk about it, of, who was holding the heat, who was holding the warmth, who was casting the shadow, and who was making the space around it illuminated. And we've shared that between us our whole lives. So now we're still sharing it. The light's still as bright, but it's just changing who's doing what. Thank
Oh.
you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jennifer,
and
for your
how are you
story.
feeling? How are you feeling, Bess? Because, when a
Oh,
loved one, their candle is spluttering, how are you feeling?
cool. I'm
You're
feeling very
okay.
good and very fortunate because my sister's candle went out 10 years ago, and my mother suffered an awful lot about that. And I think it permit me to come in and be more closer to her, and permit me to help her light her fire up again after that untimely death. So yeah, I feel pretty balanced with it. It's pretty nice, actually.
Oh, thank you so
And
much for sharing.
I'm really grateful that you gave us this perspective as the light and not the darkness. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow, can you see how one little story can open up so many different things for different people? It really is incredible, isn't it? Just what these tales can share on the different levels. Thank you. I think maybe we should have a little breath after each one, actually, because I feel it's like, oh, sort of big things that are being shared here. Thank you. We've got Janice as well. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Jennifer, and beautiful sharing, Bess. Really, really like the sharing. So for me, my candle was thick and long and girthy, and it was full of potential to spread light, but the wick, the flame was tiny in comparison to the tall and thick candle. In the conversation that I had with another candle that was tall, thick, and the flame was really fierce and full of light. Do you mind if I read the conversation, just the last part of it,
Oh
where I
no, no,
asked,
please. Yeah.
yeah. So I asked the candle, how do you do it? We're of the same girth and length, and how do you shine so brightly? So the fiercely burning bright candle replied, I'm just not afraid of losing my wax. I don't hold on, not to the fear of being flickered out or to burn my wax. You see, you need to allow yourself the wax for the light to burn as much as it can. Don't hold back from working hard. Give all the wax you have. Make every drop of it count. And while at it, don't forget to enjoy the view that your light is illuminating for others and for you. And the title for my wax was a Crescent Flame on a Full Moon Candle.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the activity. Really, really quite insightful and made me really reflect on where I am and the things that I can do and currently might be ignoring a bit due to various reasons. So thank you. Thank you for this beautiful activity.
Uh-huh. Again, this often happens. Here we are talking about death, and all of a sudden we realize it's, what your candle was saying, like really enjoy life and, shine your light. So there you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you for the activity.
Yeah, thank you. Again, let's just sort of take that in because just try perhaps to stay with that image because maybe that resonates with you somewhere as well. This fiercely lit candle, wow. Talking to the other one. Thank you. So now we have Rajika.
Hi, Jennifer. I love the workshop and I love the story as well because for me, I mean, I was expecting like a dark story, but it was so light, and light of heart, the way you told. And so I didn't feel like the gravity of it as such. But after the second writing exercise, um, and when you said, go and have a conversation with another candle in the cave, I was thinking, okay, let me go find this candle and all of that. But just suddenly, out of nowhere, when I started writing, it was my mother's voice that came in because my mother's candle burnt out 3 years ago. It's going to be 3 years on the 8th of March, and it's something. As an only child, I miss her every day. And, I didn't think of it right at the beginning of the workshop at all. But then she and I just started candle to worn out, snuffed out candle, having a chat. And so there was a lot that came out, and I was really surprised that this would be presenting itself, but I feel that it's because it needed to be addressed that it surfaced this way. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jenny.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, sometimes that happens. It's just, all of a sudden a story comes and whatever's sort of been just inside that hasn't perhaps had much time to express itself lately. And we are very near the 8th of March, aren't we? So
Yeah.
perhaps it just had to come out today. And someone did ask what happens to, the candles that go out. Well, that's a whole that's a whole other story. Yeah, wow. Again, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you. Janet, would you like to share? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. There were 3 candles that I felt, the 2 burning beside me. And my candle, me, has wooden sticks inside. So I was experiencing the interior too. And what I noticed is sometimes the candle sputters, but as soon as the flame touches one of those splinters of wood, then the flame grows so tall and so high. There's a little candle beside me, and that's our baby Yarrow, who died 31 years ago. And the third candle is my husband's candle, and his was up on a shelf in the cave. And I was sending smoke signals to him. That's how we were communicating. He's alive. And what I noticed is that the base of my candle and our baby's candle, she's right beside me, is melted together. And the title that came to me is Always Beside Me. And then our baby and I had a conversation. So I was big candle, she is little candle. So big candle says to her, I shoot my flame high because I can celebrate myself in life and let you in as part of me. We celebrate together. Little candle, but I have gone. I'm no longer here. Don't you have to let me go? Big candle, do you think I'm holding on to you? Little candle, you know what you know. It is not for me to say. Big candle, yes, I hold you close at times, yet there are times you are not with me. Little candle, is that okay? Big candle, yes, it is for me. For you? Little candle, I don't know. Let me be free like the deer. Never constrict me. Never let me feel grief. It's your grief. Own it. Big candle, I own my grief. It is mine alone. It is not yours. Little candle, I am okay with that, Mommy. And the title is Freedom to be Free.
Wow. Oh, and how are you feeling, Janet? Because that, what a powerful, powerful. There's people sending you mother hugs and.
You know, what's so freeing is for me to be allowed to feel my feelings.
Mhm.
And when sadness comes, what comes with it is pleasure.
Mhm.
This is coming, it's my heart speaking. This isn't coming out of my head.
Mhm.
And I have the right to continue my life with my daughter in it, in the way she is in it, separate from me, and yet part of me.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's freeing to
Yeah,
just speak my truth.
yeah. And your
I do
title.
feel sad, but I feel whole. And
Mm.
actually I feel happy. Both are true.
Lovely. And the title sounded very hopeful. Freedom. Mm.
Thank you, Jennifer,
Yeah,
for all you're doing for all of us, including our baby.
yeah. And thank you so much for sharing such an intimate thing, experience. And just to think, 31 years that has been inside since that little candle went out. And today you were able to, to give it a title and have a little dialogue. I mean, when you lose a baby, you never forget it ever, do you? It's like, but perhaps it's just time to be free. Yeah. Thank you again for sharing. That's lovely. And there's lots of people in the chat just saying, thank you for sharing. Very moving, speaking your truth, and so nice to hear you're feeling positive. Thank you. Again, let's just breathe in what Janet shared. What an intimate experience. A little candle that went out a long, long time ago that's chosen to share with us today. Thank you. And We'll have one more, which is Rachel, who I think isn't able to put her camera on, but we're grateful to hear. Oh, maybe she is. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. This was a journey for me. When you first had us come and look around the cave and see all the candles, that is an image for me that connects to the Holocaust, with lots of candles for the people who were murdered. And when I was in my 20s, I did a painting, and it disturbed me because all of those candles were crying out. And I came to peace by offering and painting a blessing over those candles. And so here you had us in this cave, and at first I didn't want to walk around because it took me back to that cave. But then I said, okay, I can walk around, I can look. And when you had us have a candle, I cannot have a physical candle. I have allergies, and it does not matter what the candle is made out of. It does not matter what the wick is made out of. If the candle is lit, the smoke, the flame bothers me. And so I associate candles currently with the inability to light candles to greet the Sabbath, and with negativity, because the Hanukkah candles, when they burn, cause me allergic reactions. But here, I could choose a candle. And I was expressing to your candles all of my anger and frustration with what is real for me now. But then when I chose my candle is beautiful. It is colorful. It has blues and yellows and red pinks and oranges and greens. It has glitter on it. It has jewels. And it is solid and strong. And it burns, it lights, but it doesn't burn in a way that causes me any allergies. And so it is the best candle for me. It is the candle I can choose for myself. And I was writing that this candle is the best candle for me. It expresses me. It grows and it glows. And even though it has melted wax, the melting didn't harm me in any way or hurt me. But then one of the candle that you held up, the bigger candle, reminded me of the yahrzeit candles that we light when a parent or relative dies, the mourning candles that burn for 24 hours. And I was angry. So I had that angry dialogue with your candle. And when the candles had to speak to each other, my candle was almost like a little child. I'm better than you are. I don't have any fragrance. I don't cause smoke. And the title was The Better, Best Candle.
Oh my goodness. Honestly, you've taken us to the Holocaust. You've taken us to all these places. My goodness, that is incredible. Yeah. Wow. But it was good that you were able to contact with anger. You were able to like recognize those feelings within you. And that short story, I mean, I really don't think it was a very long story. It woke all that up in you. That's incredible. Rachel, I mean, I don't know, in terms of your allergies, could your allergies to candles be connected with the image of the Holocaust, or are you allergic to a lot of things?
Oh, I'm allergic to a lot of things.
Okay, I just wondered, because that can also happen.
That is a very interesting question. Thank you. It bears thinking about, and I'm relating emotionally to, doing some heart talk about.
Oh, okay. Because also it is actually when you mentioned that, I thought, oh wow, isn't it lovely? Like it's like a candle in terms of bringing the memory back of all those people. You know, you just like through a candle. I mean, it might not have been positive in your experience, but that's what it brought up in me.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, you know, because like otherwise perhaps it's, you know, easy to forget, it's easy to forget. And it's just like how just like, you know, the rituals, like putting a candle on, like for someone's mother who's just gone, who's about to go, putting a candle on for, or an imaginary one, that doesn't cause you allergy, or the little baby candle for that child who died 31 years ago. Just how a candle can actually bring back the memory for someone who's gone,
Well,
or a people who were.
what you have just sparked for me is that in the original picture, I didn't know any of these people. There were so many, they were beyond my relatives. But I can imagine individual and beautiful candles, just like I imagined one for myself. I can personify candles for different
Yeah,
people.
thank you.
So
And
thank you.
thank you. And thank you also for the image of this candle that had all the colours, and it had glitter and it had jewels in it. I mean, from the opposite from the Holocaust candles to this jewel, and like, and then also playing with it like I'm bigger than you. And so many emotions were set up in me just listening to you. So again, thank you ever so much for sharing.
I
It was
also
really,
have to say thank you, Janet, because your honesty and when you told your truth, it freed me. Everyone's story is meaningful to me, but when you could talk about something so that had pain and was so deep and had movement in it, it also said, I can talk about my truth.
oh, thank you so much. Well, I've seen that there's Evelyn also there. So Evelyn, would you like to share, and then the time just disappears, doesn't it, in the world of stories? And again, I feel really so grateful for all these sharings. So Evelyn? Yeah.
I would be glad to share, but I can do it very quickly if you would like.
Mm.
I can do that. I can just briefly, since the time is at its end here and you're hoping to close, I'll just say that I walked through my story. You're first asking us to write down what it was that we saw. And I did find that my candle was brighting or was flickering, but it was a brilliant candle and it held on to the flame and it endured and it got bigger and it noticed all the candles around it and it didn't care whether they were little or big, and it didn't care whether they flickered brightly or just a little bit. And I did look for my family, and my family was there, but it wasn't real important because the most important thing is that all the candles were energy and love and light. And together they were on their journey. They were on their journey to continue and to burn more brightly, to be one, to be at peace. And so in that last dialogue between the candles that talk to each other, I just briefly said hello, and then there were no words to say. We both and all that looked at each other, each candle, they just looked and just, they were what they were, and they burned and they shared each other's light, and they all knew they were different, but they were one.
Mhm.
And they all eventually said to each other, I love you. I'm so happy. And I said to just a few intimate ones that pulled my attention, who were my family, we're both here. And we are. Thank you.
Oh. Wow. Very sort of like spiritual as well, isn't it? Oh, thank you. Well, I don't think we'll do any more exercises because that we'll finish on that lovely note on this journey together. And just with the feeling that because I actually was a little bit nervous about getting you to go into this cave with the candles. I must admit, I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. And very happy that we did it because it's so easy to avoid death or cheat death. Now, I won't go into the candle. It's, you know, I was actually getting into the trap myself. So I'm really glad that we did go in and that. And also that we didn't get into breakout rooms because I think that we had to share here today, didn't we? Just like hear how the experience was for all the other people that shared. And also just know as storytellers or as people who work with stories, just how powerful a little story can be and how we can never, ever imagine how that's going to resonate with the other person. You know, it could waken up memories from 31 years ago or from something like the Holocaust. It just wakens up so many things. And that's all I have to say, really. It's not me. I just happen to be here and tell the story. It's the story that's doing its work. And thank you. If anyone is interested, I am actually going to do sort of like short courses, 7-week courses with the 2-hour workshops. And it's just exploring death through storytelling, through creativity. There's always creativity there, and a little ritual. There's little rituals in there as well, and it's not dark at all. I call it Dancing with Death because it really is exploring, talking, freeing emotions that perhaps have been trapped there for who knows how many years. And it just helps us connect with life and enjoy life more, actually, when we do. So thank you. I think
Jennifer,
Yep.
this gentleman, Nageshwara Rao wants to say something.
Oh, please do, please do.
Thank you for a lovely story. It inspired all of us. Different people have different perception. So my perception is that purpose of the candle is to give the light to everybody and serve in a different manner. So I have so many candles. As per your story, I have 3. If I take the natural one, the sun is the brightest star.
Oh.
It gives light to all of us. It burns permanently, forever. I don't know how long it burns. The second one, when the sun is not available, the moon is there. The second candle. Third one, your story inspired us like a third candle. So I have these 3 candles in my perception. So excellent for lovely story and workshop to Eric G and you, Jennifer ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello?
So Beth has asked, how do we join Dancing with Death? I've just put it in the list.
Hello?
Hello? Sorry, someone else?
Yeah, I'm Mahendra Kumar. I'm saying all the sessions which are included in this is really good to say. It's really good. All the stories, music, and everything was really good. And also, I also liked it from the first.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Can I call you Eric or your
Yes,
name
of course.
is Miller?
Eric.
Eric. thank you so much, Eric.
Mhm.
And also thanks to this team also.
Thank you for sharing. I just wonder, as just again, just to close off. So in the end, is death just and fair? Just do you know how we started off sort of talking about that? Was he just and fair? I just wonder, before you go off, the Indians go off to bed, and just to know, because this whole thing about cheating death, friend or foe, and for me personally, death is a friend who's there just to help us on the next part of the journey. But that's a personal thing. Nobody said anything about fair. Well, just, yeah, Bess, we were in. Okay, Eric, so I think it's probably best just, I'm not going to, I had a few other possible exercises, but I really think that today was just, it was the cave of the candles of light. And what came out is what was waiting to come out.
Thank you very much. Wonderful workshop.
Mhm.